It's second versus third in League One, but can Lincoln City end the day top of the table? It's Matchday Live. Yes, hello there, and welcome to another episode of Matchday Live here from the LNER Stadium. It's a big one today, isn't it? So much to get through on the show. We'll be hearing from both sets of managers, Michael Appleton and Paul Lambert. We'll get the latest from Joe Walsh. He tells us how he's settling into life here in the city of Lincoln. And of course, we'll be live pitch side with Alan Long at 2 o'clock for the latest team news. So do stay with us and do get your questions and comments in on today's show as well. I want to hear your score predictions and where you're watching Matchday Live from. Get your questions in for the one and only Gary Hutchinson, who joins me as ever as well. Gary, it's a big week for you as well. Congratulations from all the club on 100 podcasts. Tell us about it.
Yeah, thank you, Sam. And first of all, it's nice to be back on a proper show after being sat in my office for 2 hours the other night.
Don't tell Ben Ward that.
No, Ben and I went to our 100th podcast. We'd done a vote for the 100 best players of a generation. So we had a 2-hour show the other night. We featured some former players. Gordon Hobson came on, Alan Marriott, Simon Yeo, amongst others. And we just had a lot of fun. Lots of people watching, lots of people buying in, and lots of debate as well.
Great stuff. And tell us who ran out the overall sort of top three then.
The overall top three, we had Peter Gain at number 3, who's a personal favourite of mine. I think one of the best technical footballers we've had for many a generation. Trevor Peake came in at number 2, obviously enduring the passing of time from the early 80s side. But the one and only Gareth Ainsworth was streets ahead with almost twice as many votes as anybody else. And he is a true playing legend.
Of course, he is a legend and a very cool bloke as well. Still doing good things at Wickham, of course. What about today then, Gary? Biggest game of the season for the Imps so far, would you say?
Yeah, I think a wise man once said the next game's always the biggest. But it's a pivotal point for the club today because, look, if we were to take a win from today's game and go above Ipswich, we'd be second, perhaps top. It's a serious statement of intent. Lincoln City beating Ipswich and going to maybe the top of the table. Draw today, we're kind of saying, look, we're here to stay, we're in here, but we're trying to reach the level. Defeat today wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. But again, I think today is a huge barometer of our next 10, 15 games. I really do.
Let's get to some of your comments then. Wayne says, come on, you mighty Imps. Michelle Darcy. Hi, Michelle, says, good luck, Lincoln. It will be a tough one, but I think they can win it. Jacob Langham, good to hear from you, Jacob. Come on, Lincoln City today. I am going for 2-1 to the Imps. Shay Purdy says, Harry Anderson should start, in my opinion, has been very good recently and looking to add more goals and assists. Yeah, good to hear from you, Shay. We will be getting that team news live from 2 o'clock this afternoon. And David Johnson says, morning, guys. Glad to be able to catch this week's show. David Johnson joining us from Missouri, I believe, in America. So good to hear from you, David, as ever. Right, let's have a look back at that Plymouth win then. It was only a few days ago, but Gary, it was quite the performance, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I thought it was quite tough at times in the first half. The weather didn't help, and Plymouth are a really organised side who play football the right way. We were certainly trying to play our game again. I mean, you see Brennan Johnson there, who was absolutely excellent. I mean, this was actually a really good chance to take the lead, just begging poor Tom to stick a foot on it. But Tom did a lot of work outside the area as well. We ground it out in the first half. Great save from Alex Palmer there, even though it was offside. But then in the second half, I thought we came out with a better intent, a better purpose, perhaps a little bit more aggressive, and the game swung in our favour.
Yeah, and this was the sort of play from Brennan Johnson that he just adds something. He adds that championship quality, doesn't he? There, okay, the cross didn't quite make its way through, but he does add that, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. And he's also very direct. He's a flair player. He will run at players. He will ask questions. And I think when you're a team like us that has that kind of real attack intent, you have to be asking questions and getting in positions to win penalties as well as have opportunities.
Yeah, and nicely put away by George Grant. We'll talk about the penalty incident shortly, but another excellent penalty from George Grant there, who just doesn't really seem to miss, does he?
No, he doesn't. I mean, obviously, even the one he did miss, he followed up and put away earlier in the season. I mean, George Grant, for me, has been a revelation this season. We know what he's about. We know he's a good footballer technically, but he's added so much to his game. And we've spoke on the show about Harry Anderson. We speak about players like Brennan Johnson. But George Grant has just become this all-rounder. I mean, his application has been absolutely phenomenal throughout the season.
Yeah, it felt like a really big moment for Brennan. Of course it is. His very short career so far, but the scenes of celebration there, yet again, you just wish that he was celebrating in front of 10,000 fans there.
Yeah, you do. We say it every week. What a moment that would have been when the second goal went in. I think we would have felt quite a lot of tension going into the end of the first half as supporters. And then as soon as Johnson caps the game off, that's party time. That's when the 617 spark up for the rest of the 90 minutes and everyone goes home buzzing. Sadly, it's not to be. But look, one day we will be back in the stadium and we will be watching a Michael Appleton team doing what they're doing. And it's just going to be even sweeter than ever.
And the small matter of a congratulatory Instagram message from the one and only David Beckham as well, Gary, mixing with royalty.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I mean, we can joke about it, but little things like that actually make a big difference because they are newsworthy. You know, the Nottinghamshire Live ran with it, the Lincolnshire Live ran with it. It made headlines just because a world superstar is keeping an eye on one of our players, is keeping an eye on one of our clubs. Now, let's not forget he's involved with Inter Miami. You just never know. You never know how these kind of relationships spring up. And when you look at Michael Appleton's relationships with the players he's played with as well, it is actually a huge bonus for the club.
What about that penalty incident then? Because Ryan Lowe had some comments after the game, which you wonder if that could affect things going forward slightly and maybe the way that penalty incident was given.
Yeah, possibly so. I think it's unfortunate because even the highlights didn't show the Stonewall penalty 2 minutes earlier where Brennan Johnson tried to stay on his feet. So what the world is seeing is a penalty which, in my opinion, was a little bit dubious. Some photos I've seen suggest there was contact. The way he went down was a little bit theatrical. I'm not saying he dived at all, but he stayed on his feet and didn't win a penalty minutes earlier. The problem is the comments from Ryan Lowe and subsequently that have been attributed to the Referees Association suggest that we were given a weak penalty. And for me, when Brennan Johnson's won 3 penalties in 2 matches, 3 penalties in 2 starts, referees might just be a little bit more reticent to point to the spot. I called it on the radio last night, the Bruno Andrade effect, because we saw it with Bruno. His problem was he went down relatively easily, and then when he was fouled, it was like the boy who cried wolf. We didn't get the decisions. I just hope that's not going to be the case with Brennan after Ryan Lowe's comments.
Andy Helgerson says, it's a big test today. Keep it tight and we'll get a good result. Keep up the good work, guys. Good to hear from you, Andy. John McCormack says 3-2 to the Imps. Come back from 2-0 down. Okay, that'd be quite some win, John, but I'm not sure if the Hearts can take that one. But good to hear from you. Carl Beach says, big game today, a win today. And can we finally get carried away? I think you can always get carried away as football fans, can't you, Carl? But I think the fans would certainly be getting carried away after a win today, wouldn't they, Gary?
Yeah, it's hard not to. I think when you've got performances to match results as well, I think it is easy to get carried away. And as a club that have had the success that we have over the last 4 years, and I will account last year to a degree because we had some decent spells. It's not hard to believe we haven't come out of 5 years in the doldrums. We've had success. We're playing some great football. It's a results game. If you keep winning games, people keep believing.
Absolutely. Right then. Well, we've just read out some comments there. And I know that someone who regularly comments into Matchday Live here at the LNER Stadium is Steve O'Dare. Delighted to say that Steve can join us now. Good to see you, Steve. How are you?
I'm very well, Sam. Thank you. And thanks for the opportunity to be on here with you.
No, it's great to have you on, rocking the home shirt as well. Nice and easy one to start with, Steve. What have you made to the start to the season?
Oh, well, it's been much better than I think I expected on a personal basis, because we never really knew what was going to happen. New team, new players, and Atherton has. I keep calling him Atherton because I'm a big cricket fan. Michael Appleton has really pulled it together, I think, and has put together a very, very strong squad. I was going to say team, but I think he's put together a very, very strong squad.
Yeah, and that is really important, isn't it? That he does put together a particularly strong squad. Has the start surprised you at all? Did you expect Lincoln to be quite as high as they are in the table after this particular point in time?
In a word, no. I'm a bit of a Gary Hutchinson, really. I'm a bit of a pessimist, and I would have thought if we would have been mid-table by now, still looking upwards, then I think that's where we would have been. To be third in the league after 7 games, and looking at playing Ipswich, who are virtually exactly the same record as we are, it's surprising for me. Surprising.
Steve, it's obviously a big game in the league today, but of course this is a fixture that brings back great memories for Lincoln fans with regards to a recent FA Cup run. What were your memories from, first of all, the 2-2 draw?
Oh, what a day out that was! 5,000 Imps at the game, cheering the guys on. Just watching Theo there. Whatever happened to him? Wish we'd have kept him, and I still wish we had him now. To be fair, it was a wonderful day, and to be honest with you, we went there and we deserved to win on the day, and yeah, it was one of the best days out I've had in an awful long time, and we followed that up, didn't we, and went all the way to Arsenal.
Yeah, and we'll come on to one of the games that helped follow up that run to Arsenal. But Gary, Steve mentioned 5,000 Imps there. It was one of those days, wasn't it, where the momentum at the club just seemed to swing a little bit. And I know Oldham was one of those games as well, but in terms of away support, this one was just quite special, wasn't it?
Yeah, Oldham had whetted the appetite because it had been on telly. There'd been a lot of fans there, to be fair. I think it was 7,000 odd. But it had been on telly. The city had woken up to Lincoln City. And I remember getting on a coach to go to Ipswich, and there was people around me who were saying, I haven't been to see Lincoln in 5 years. I haven't been to see Lincoln in 10 years. And at the time, some fans actually resented that. They actually had, they were getting tickets for Ipswich and I wasn't. And I kind of understood it at the time. But that was the start. That was the start of us now having 8, 9, 10,000 every single week. That game, that FA Cup run.
And Steve, I think what was quite interesting when we look back at that fixture, it was almost, when we drew Ipswich, it was almost like, okay, we've got a big draw here. We've got a big club, big stadium to go and play it. And of course, now we're playing them essentially second versus third for a potential place in the Championship at some stage. Yeah,
it just goes to show how far we've come in a relatively short time, to be fair. And it's wonderful. As a Lincoln City fan, of 50 years standing, really, it's fairly amazing. I have to say that through my army service from 72 to 95, I didn't get the opportunity to be at Sincil Bank very often, and when I did get there, it was always a special time. But since sort of 95 and moving back home here to Skegness and going on a regular basis, we've had some real highs and we've had some real lows, but now we seem to be on a fairly consistent high, and I hope I haven't hexed it by saying that. So, Steve, that was obviously the 2-2 game that we've looked at about there. You mentioned the FA Cup run. 10 days later, Lincoln City host Ipswich Town at Sincil Bank. I'll ask you about it shortly, but for those that can't quite remember it, although I'm sure you all can, this is what happened.
Curled in, it's headed away by Power. Is this the chance for Lincoln? The ball's gone up to say 4 minutes added on. This is Marriott, and Marriott plays in Arnold. This is it for Lincoln City. It's Nathan Arnold to put the Imps through. It came from an Ipswich free kick. One header later and Lincoln were through. This is brilliant work from Adam Marriott. He's not been on the field long, but he held it up. He placed the pass at the right time. Arnold ran at the right time. And that is really coolly done. The National League side have beaten the team from the Championship.
Yeah, if you don't get goosebumps watching that, I don't think you're a human being. Steve, what were your memories from that one?
What a night that was. I mean, Sinsel Bank on an evening with the lights on is a special place to be, and with it, it was absolutely packed out. And one of the things that always sticks in my mind is the fact that obviously before the game had started, we celebrated the life of the one and only Graham Taylor, and it was just meant to be for me. That game, that win was just meant to be, and I think Ipswich were quite lucky to get away with a 1-0, and that goal by Nathan Arnold. He's a special guy anyway, Nathan, but that goal was just the perfect scenario for the club, and I understand exactly what Gary was saying about and you were saying about the first game being the turnaround really for the club and the way we then shot forward. But that night for me was just one of the most special nights that we've had, that I've ever had in since when.
Yeah, Ed Little says that pass from Marriott with a thumbs up. Yeah, it was quite a special ball, wasn't it? And Rastang says goosebumps all over again. Yeah, certainly so. Gary, I'll ask you, with regards to that game. Obviously, it was on the BBC. I think it came just after EastEnders, didn't it? It did seem like a match where the rest of the country started to take a bit of notice about Lincoln City and the sort of season that they were having, and potentially the sort of damage that they could do in the FA Cup.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you 100%. I think when we played Oldham, I think they were a League One side, and it was a big result. Drawing at Ipswich, there's always a few shocks on FA Cup third round day, and obviously a draw is not a giant killing. But then to go out to the nation, and I don't think it's just the fact that we won. I think it's the manner in which we won it. Yeah, I think if you score in the 4th minute and then you shut up shop and go heavy metal and win 1-0. Probably it doesn't quite get the same sort of reaction. But when you win it in the manner that we did, which is iconic. I mean, it'll stay with me forever that night, without a doubt, as one of my Imps highlights. So as a neutral, you're kind of getting that climatic end to the story. You're getting the big payoff right in the final minute, and I think a lot of people bought into that, and then obviously followed the rest of the run from there. Absolutely,
Steve. We'll let you get off shortly. Just a couple more questions. I'll ask you, obviously, you're a lifelong Imp, as you mentioned. Where would you think that this particular Michael Appleton side ranks amongst other Lincoln City teams that you've watched over the years?
Ooh, that's a tough question. I think we've got to remember that football has changed so much over the years. And, the way that the team plays now is very special to me. We are now playing football, probably, as the people would say, in the way that it should be said. Going back to the Trevor Peake era, Gareth Ainsworth, we had some really, really good players. But did we ever have a team as good as this one? Was the Cowleys team as good as this one? It's difficult to say. I think if I had to make a statement about it, I would say that this side that we have now, this squad that we have now, is as good as any that I've seen at Sinsel Bank.
And Carl Beach says Keith Alexander days were brilliant, weren't they? Yes, they certainly were, but think this beats it, to be honest. Gary, I'll put that question to you then. For the teams that you've seen so far, taking everything into account, where do you think it starts to rank?
I think we have to take into account that we're 10 or 11 games in altogether. So, huge early promise. But if you look at 2006-07, the John Schofield side was phenomenal. Had they carried that on through to the end of the season and won the league, then it would have been a truly legendary side. So I think you've got to factor in longevity. We've got to keep going. If we keep playing football the way we're playing, then I genuinely believe also it's probably the best Lincoln City side I've ever seen.
Steve, just want to finish then your score predictions today. How do you see the game going?
It will, well, I as I blogged, I think today will be all three all three outcomes today are possible. I think we'll do well to get a point, to be fair. But having said that, I don't think I would be overly surprised if we went and won the game quite comfortably. I think we know what we've got, and we know how consistent we are. I think a lot will depend on which Ipswich team actually turn up today. But if I have to go for a score, I'd go for 1-1 with the prospect of a 3-0 to Lincoln.
That is one of the all-time. That is one of the all-time great sitting on the fence answers that I've ever been given, Steve. Really appreciate your time this afternoon. Go and get settled. Enjoy the game, and I'm sure we'll be speaking to you very soon. Take care.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks, Gary. All the best to you.
Great to hear the thoughts of long-time Imps Steve O'Dare there. But Gary, calling you out there, calling you a pessimist. We don't get that vibe from you on this show.
I'm a self-confessed pessimist on my blog. I always start in the negative, and then things can only get better. As Sophie Ellis-Bextor once sang with the audience, a pessimist is never disappointed, and I prefer it that way. There
you go. Shout out to Sophie Ellis-Bextor on a Lincoln City Matchday live show. We bring it all to you. Okay, let's get to some of your comments then. Phil says, so far, the style of football that we are playing is the best I've seen. Long way to go yet, though. Can we keep it or raise it further? I'm sure that Michael Appleton would say, Gary, that judging by the post-match interviews that we watch with him, that his side can always raise it further. I think there's a lot more to come. Again, I go back to his only being 10, 11, 12 games into his run. I'm not sure how many it is now. And I class this as his era. You know, last season he was kind of tying up the loose ends of the previous era. And I think we've seen consistently with Michael that his players get better, his teams get better. I think we've got better from the start of the season. I think we're more attacking, and we play our game more now than we did against the likes of Charlton and Oxford. And that's no criticism of those results. I think there's a lot more in the tank as these players begin to understand each other and form long-lasting partnerships. Plenty of your comments coming in regards to the FA Cup run, and in particular the Ipswich home win with that brilliant Nathan Arnold goal. James Christopher says that night was incredible. I ended up out until about 4 a.m. The hangover the next day was certainly worth it. Yeah, you weren't the only one, James. Brings back some brilliant memories, doesn't it? Okay, so that is the nostalgia aspect of this show done and dusted. Let's move it back to the present day then and hear from Joe Walsh, who was speaking at the Soper of Lincoln EPC earlier this week ahead of today's game.
It hasn't been too bad, to be fair. I thought it'd be worse. Being a bit stiff, always stiff after games. But yeah, not too bad, thanks.
Good. Has it been easier than you thought after such a long spell out, getting back into the swing of it and getting through these 90 minutes?
Yeah, it has a little bit, yeah, but I don't want to get carried away and say it's now and then have a nightmare tomorrow. I just want to keep my head down and stay focused on to the next game. How enjoyable has it been to be back out on the pitch? Yeah, so what everyone else is doing. That's what we play football for, and just training hard every day and play for Tuesday and Saturday. So yeah, it's been really good. Really enjoyed it. I've not had a chance to chat to you since you moved to St Sub Bank. What was it about Lincoln that attracted you here? Why did you want to make the move to Lincoln? Well, I spoke to the gaffer first, and he said all good things about Lincoln. And obviously, I played against Lincoln a couple of times at MK, and both times the fans were a massive thing for me coming because they were so good. We played against them, and it's just an ambitious club, nice training ground, and everything looked good. Everything suited me. So yeah, I was excited to come here. And I guess for you, MK Dundee, they're a long time, played a lot of football. Is it sometimes in a career, although you might be enjoying somewhere, about not becoming stale and about having a fresh challenge? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's always nice to have a fresh challenge and a changer. You might don't want to get too comfortable at the same team, and I think it was just the right time to move on from MK Dons. It's been a great start to the season so far, especially the last couple of games, those clean sheets as well. How important have they been to Lincoln's success? Yeah, obviously just going to every game wanting to win, and our job is to keep a clean sheet for the team. But it's not. It's the whole team is working hard to keep the clean sheet, and just thankful that the wins are coming with it.
Something we've noticed with it being an empty stadium is Alex Palmer's voice. You can hear him throughout anything else when he's calling for the ball. How important has that been to you as centre halves and as defenders?
Yeah, it's obviously really important to hear your goalkeeper behind you always giving you information, and he's great at it. He's probably the loudest keeper I've ever played with, and he don't show up in the games, which is a good thing, and hopefully he keeps doing it. And
I guess for you as defenders, it gives you that extra confidence, doesn't it, that he's dealing with those situations? Yeah,
it keeps you on your toes the whole game, and so you don't lose any concentration. It's a massive thing now with no crowds, and but yeah, it's really important for him to keep talking to us and for us to keep talking to the players in front of us as well.
Yeah, plenty of compliments, I should say, for Alex Palmer coming from Joe Walsh there. And Gary, 2 starts for him, 2 clean sheets. It's not a bad way to come in, is it, and make an impression?
Not when you consider how long he's had out as well. Played his last competitive game in February. I know a few played then, obviously, March and the long layoff. But he had a bit of a stop-start to this season, didn't he? He appeared in a friendly and then kind of disappeared for a while through injury. So I think he's done really well. I think he's come in kind of from a little bit of a standing start behind some of the other lads, and he looked every bit as comfortable as anybody else. I thought he was particularly impressive the week before the Plymouth game, but I also thought he had a good game against Plymouth. He was certainly steady, and I like to see that experienced head alongside Lewis Monsma. Monsma's more of a maverick. He'll go on the run and he'll kind of leave his post sometimes, and you need a dependable general who can then pick up, and I think Joe Walsh did that really well.
Yeah, that's an interesting point that you make there, that they do complement each other. Once again, testament to Michael that he is signing players that are complementing each other in specific positions, as we can see here.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I think that marks out Michael Appleton playing more than anything, and people will talk about technique, passing, all that sort of stuff, I actually think is positional awareness. And I think you see it in the midfield as well, that when players are leaving their posts, somebody else is going and filling in. So that in actual fact, we've always kind of got a shape of some description. And if you look at the chances that we've conceded, quite often that's been where perhaps that hasn't just quite worked. And no, if it works all day, every day, you're going to shoot up the league, because that's the mark of a successful side. So occasionally it's going to break down. What you need is players who 95% of the time are aware of where their teammates are, both when they've got the ball and when they've not got the ball. And I think certainly in Adam Jackson and Joe Walsh, we've got 2 defenders who are aware that they may need to kind of be the barrier when a more adventurous defender goes forward, such as Lewis Monsma.
And one of the words he mentioned in that press conference as well was ambition. It's always interesting, isn't it, to hear a player from outside the area, in this case outside the country as well, because of course he's a Welsh player, talk about ambition at a club like Lincoln. And that's something that he noticed, and one of the reasons as to why he joined, not just to necessarily play football, but play football for a club that's going places.
Yeah, I think from an MK Dons point of view, I think it'd be hard not to see our ambition when they came to our place and the Lancaster came over. I think Joe Walsh played in that game. The atmosphere was electric. We went to MK Dons and obviously we were then superb there with 5,000 fans. It's hard not to see that this is a club on the up. If you're a player walking out at Sinsel Bank, walking out to your own ground and then your fans are being outsung. You also then look at the likes of Michael Appleton, high-profile manager. You look at some of the players we've been bringing in, the likes of Liam Bridgecut. Little Lincoln City of 20 years ago don't bring in former Sunderland, Chelsea, and Leeds United midfielder Liam Bridgecut. And when players see something's going well, they want to be a part of that. And if they're a good player as well, they actually become a significant part of it. So it's kind of like a circle that just keeps going round and round.
Yeah, we're getting very close to 2 o'clock on the team news. We're going live to Alan Long very shortly. Richard Cross says, team-wise, it's very good as for individual players. They have been better, but it's a team game. It's fair enough, Richard. You're more than welcome to your opinion. Great to hear from you. David Johnson says the rotation and coverage has been really solid. We've been tough to break down all season so far. And Steve says Joe Walsh, who we've just been mentioning there, in the back 4 completes the jigsaw. Ioma, Monsma, Walsh, Rowan. Yeah, it's a really strong back 4. Good to hear from you, Steve. Right then, it's 2 o'clock, which means we can go live pitch side to Alan Long, who has today's team news.
Thank you very much, Sam. Yeah, welcome to pitch side here at the LNER Stadium. As always, I'm going to kick off with our visitors from Ipswich Town. So in goal for them is number 1, Thomas Holy. At 3 is Stephen Ward. 4, Luke Chambers. 5, James Wilson. At 7, Guion Edwards. Number 11, John Nolan. 14, Jack Lancaster. Teddy Bishop is at 15. 22 is Aristo and Ciala. Number 23, Andre Dizelle. And at 32, Ollie Hawkins. On the bench for Town today, we've got 28, David Cornell. Number 2, Mark McGuinness. Luke Wolfenden is at 6. 17, Keenan Bennett. 20, Freddie Sears. 30, Miles Kenlock. And 44, Emir Hughes. Right, onto the Imps lineup, we've got a couple of changes. Theo Eden and Harry Anderson come in for Tom and Sean Rowan. So the full Imps lineup: in goal is number 1, Alex Palmer. At number 4, Lewis Monsmer. At 7, Theo Eden. At 8, James Jones. Number 10, George Grant. At 16, Joe Walsh. 18, Conor McGrandles. At 20 is Brennan Johnson. TJ Ioma is at 22. 23, Liam Bridcut. And at 26, Harry Anderson. On the bench for the Imps today, we've got 29, Ethan Ross. Number 9, Tom Hopper. 11, Anthony Scully. 14, Theo Archibald. 21, Jamie Sewell. Robbie Gotts is at 24. And number 30, Sean Rowan. Today's referee, Kevin Johnston. The assistants, Andrew Dallison and Oliver Bickle. And the fourth official is Ian Smedley. Sam, back to you.
Thanks very much, Al. So that is your starting lineup for both Ipswich and Lincoln. And Gary, I'll go to you then. Your initial thoughts on that Imps starting 11?
Well, the first huge call there is Tom Hopper for what I would imagine. I mean, I know it's Harry coming in, but I would imagine is Brennan Johnson going through and playing centre forward. And that is, no disrespect to Tom, but that's incredibly exciting because that gives us a centre forward who's going to play wanting the game ahead of him. He's going to be running into the area. He's going to be causing all sorts of problems. So that's a really interesting change for me. I wonder if Tom's just feeling the strain of playing 90 minutes week in, week out, where other teams are rotating. Obviously, Theo comes back in at left back. I thought Theo did really well at the weekend, actually, in that position at Fleetwood. I think obviously coming in for he came out in the weekend for Sean Rowan. I would imagine that's with just rotation in mind. I think we've got 2 players there who both would expect to be getting regular minutes in the first team, and to keep swapping them around when they're both very strong players seems about right. Joe Walsh, another 90 minutes expected from him. It's a huge test for him as well in terms of his progression with his fitness. So just shows how many options we've got there, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, chatting to you on the show as we do about the team news, it's interesting, isn't it, that Michael likes to rotate between Theo and Sean. I guess it's a lot of that is to do with which player is playing on the opposite flank every week.
Yeah, very possibly. I mean, look back over some Ipswich teams of late, and Alan Judge plays out on the right, on the wide right for them. Now he's obviously a very dangerous player. I think he when he dropped into League One, he was coveted by Championship teams again. Really, really experienced. And I just wonder if probably Theo Edens played a little bit more football than Sean. But then again, I'm sure Sean could handle that. I think in terms of pace, Judge isn't a CJ Hamilton. Again, I also wonder if up front, maybe there's an element of that as well. When you listen to the Ipswich team, there's Nsala there, there's James Wilson there. These are players we know who decent defenders, perhaps not the quickest. So I wonder if instead of, we don't go long to Tom, but we do sometimes expect Tom to bring the ball out of the area with his back to goal and feed it wider. I wonder if instead of that, we're going to be kind of just trying to hit them really hard with pace and expose those players a little bit more.
Yeah, good to hear from you, Gary, with regards to today's team news. Look, this is a show that often relies on a good Wi-Fi connection. We know that, you know that. We are hoping to speak to Adam Jackson, not involved today, but we can go live to the media suite now. Adam, I believe, is Alan Long with you there as well to have a chat? If he is, we'll leave you two to have a chat and hope that the Wi-Fi connection holds up.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sam. Yeah, as like you said, we're here in the media suite with Adam. And Adam, you must be pleased. Welcome, first of all, to Matchday Live. You must be pleased with the way the season's gone for the team so far.
Yeah. Well, like you said, from the start of the season where we were expecting to be and wanting to be, I'm really pleased with the results and more so the performance as well. I think we played really well, especially the last couple of games. So yeah, everyone's really pleased.
Now, when the fixtures came out, we did what we always do. We looked at them and we looked at the Ipswich game. There's a bit of history I'm sure you know about with Lincoln and Ipswich. Yeah. Tough game today.
Yeah, part of it, especially with them being in the Championship not so long ago as well. They've obviously still got a big budget, a good squad, but I think with, like I said, we've been playing recently and the form the lads have been showing, there's no reason why we can't stand up to them and hopefully get a win.
Now, this is the first chance we've had to talk to you on Matchday Live. So tell us a little bit about how the move came about and how you're settling in.
It came about I was speaking in January this season, Jez and the manager, and then ended up coming in the summer. Just something that saw the club so easy, but obviously the history of it as well. Big club, the fans, a lot of it was around the fans and the atmosphere and taking fans to away games and stuff like that. And then the club and the gaffer saw his philosophy and the way he went to play. It was like a young, energetic squad, so everything just mounted up to a no-brainer. Like, I really wanted to be here. So.
And for you personally, on the pitch, I know you're not playing today, but it's been a pretty successful start.
Yeah, good start. Obviously, a little bit against Bristol Rovers, but I was pleased before that, and then lost a few bad decisions in that game. But like I say, it's just been the same with the lads. Just everyone's played well and done the bit to keep form going.
Brilliant. Well, Adam, thanks very much for joining us today on Matchday Live. And we'll go back to you up in the studio, Sam.
Brilliant stuff. Thanks very much indeed, Alan. Thanks to Adam Jackson as well. Wi-Fi just about held up there, didn't it? We could hear him. Couldn't quite see him, but good to hear the thoughts of Adam Jackson anyway. And Gary, it was a really strong start to the season for Adam. He mentioned it there, didn't he? Little blip against Bristol Rovers, but that is going to happen. He'll learn from that, and we know what an excellent player he is already.
Yeah, you win games, you lose games. I don't think a little blip can be held against a player particularly. I thought prior to that, Adam Jackson has settled really well. I think he's a really good defender. I'd likened him to Paul Morgan. Not the tallest, not the quickest, not the hardest, but he's just got enough of absolutely everything to be this perfect all-rounder. Go back to that positional awareness as well. You know, he's been around clubs, hasn't played an awful lot of senior football for his age. Had spells out of the side at Barnsley, I think. But just a calm and assured defender. Had got forward, got a goal as well. I think when he comes back, Michael's going to have a wonderful problem of at least 3 first-choice centre-halves, and that's without talking about the likes of Melbourne and Ioma and Rowan, who are all centre-halves as well. So it's a good place to be in.
Yeah, good stuff. Plenty of options indeed for Michael Appleton. Of course, Michael Appleton, the Lincoln City manager. The manager of Ipswich Town is Paul Lambert. This is what he had to say speaking at Ipswich's training ground earlier on this week about today's game.
That's that. It's about the reaction and the bouncing back. As I said, for the first 30 minutes, I thought we were really good. Then we've analysed it, looked at it yesterday and had a chat with the guys. So, yeah, we just have to react. We know you're not going to get it your own way all the time. And it's about the reaction, and let's see.
Another difficult away trip.
Yeah, all the games are hard. There's not an easy game, whether you're at home or whether you're away. And even more so when there's no fans either, which is still ongoing. So every game's hard. Everybody wants to beat us as well. So maybe we're still in really good form.
Only 7 games in. They always say about the table taking shape. It hasn't yet. That's fair to say. But Lincoln are up there with us. Both started the season well. Yeah, they've done really well. But the 7 games is nothing really. You've got so many games, and the difference being you have to cram them all in a certain amount of time, and nobody knows. You look at the Accrington situation at the minute, and it's just a really strange situation, and it's difficult without the fans. I don't think anybody can argue. You need the fans in it as well. That's still sidelined, the likes of.
So that was Paul Lambert speaking to the local media earlier this week about today's game. And Gary, I know you doing your League One write-ups at the start of the season. You had Ipswich to struggle, didn't you? And you actually had Lambert, potentially one of those managers that could be close to losing his job around Christmas time. Do you still think that would be the case? I'm guessing the answer's no, judging by their start to the season.
They've had a good start to the season, but the pressure on Ipswich Town is huge from their supporters. And I think that, for instance, if they were to not get a result today, they would begin to look at last year's collapse and worry the same was happening again. I don't get inspired by Lambert when I listen to him talk. For instance, there he said things like everybody wants to beat us and Lincoln are up there, but 7 games is nothing. I get the impression that there's a feeling that perhaps he feels that Ipswich should be up there based on their club size. I think their supporters are accepting of that. That's not the case. I still wouldn't be surprised. A lot does depend on the next couple of games, but if Lincoln lose 2 games on the bounce, all is still okay. If Ipswich lose 2 games on the bounce, the tide turns very, very quickly.
Good stuff, Gary. Okay, let's now bring in Gab Sutton from Football Lab. Gab, great to have you on today's show. Good to see you. Firstly, what have you made to Lincoln's start to this season? Then we're talking about League One predictions there earlier. Where did you have Lincoln when you wrote your piece at the start of the year?
I think I had Lincoln around the lower mid-table mark, perhaps. I think there was maybe towards for much of Michael Appleton's reign, it seems as though a lot of fans weren't necessarily, or some fans certainly weren't necessarily convinced that he would deliver the kind of results we're seeing so far this season. I'm not saying I saw this coming at all, but I did think that Appleton would take Lincoln City forward, whether that's this season or in the future seasons to come, because he's shown what he can do as a manager at Oxford United when he's developed a lot of players there that are now sort of playing in the Premier League. So he's a coach that I rate very highly, and clearly, he's seeing the results from some really good recruitment. I mean, players like Lewis Monk. I think Appleton's used his lockdown time well, should we say, to recruit and scout those more obscure places, and certainly we're seeing the results.
Yeah, I mean, you've actually answered my next question there. I was going to say, what did you put it down to? But clearly the answer there is recruitment. I know Gary's got a question for you as well. So Gary, I'll let you take that one away.
Yeah, Gab, you're right, mate. I am interested in how you might see Robbie Gotts fitting into this side. I know you do an awful lot of work around squads and potential signings. Obviously, we've not seen anything of Gotts yet, but where do you see him fitting in, and what does he add to our side?
Right, guys, great to see it. I think with Robbie Gotts, I think his versatility is going to be really important. So he actually came through at Leeds United as a right back. They had quite a good under-23 side, I'm led to believe, and he was part of that as a right back. But actually, when they played Arsenal away in the FA Cup last season, he kind of played as a number 8. So I think that flexibility is something that Appleton will like. He seems to like taking on young players, sometimes like loan signings that have maybe on their second loan spell because the first. So he likes players that have at a young age with a lot of talent, but also have that little bit of grounding. I think Gotts has that, having been exposed to that big FA Cup game. So I can see why he's appealed to Appleton in that sense. But I think he's versatile. And also I think having players who have played in lots of different positions mean that they're able to adjust to different phases of play. So if you're just a number 10, then you're only going to be at the attacking side of the game. Right back. So I think having that experience of lots of different positions is something that's going to really appeal to Appleton, and I can't wait to see how he gets on.
Gab, what about Ipswich then? Gary mentioned it before that they're under a bit of pressure, aren't they, to do very good things this season? What have you made of them so far, and how difficult a test will it be for the Imps today?
Yeah, I mean, let's not underestimate Ipswich. They only had their first defeat on Tuesday night, wasn't it, away at Doncaster. That was quite a comprehensive defeat. Maybe you might say, that draw at MK Dons, they were slightly fortunate in that one to get a point. But at the same time, they've been in really good form. I like the signing of Ollie Hawkins. I think he's probably one of the most underrated strikers in League One because he doesn't really catch the eye in the sense that he doesn't score too many goals. But at the same time, the kind of the selfless running that he does into wide areas, his ability to kind of be a target man presence as well while still being fairly mobile, I think that's made a really big difference. Ipswich's attacking play. Guion Edwards, of course, as well, has started the season in quite impressive form. So I think it's important that Lincoln City give Ipswich the respect they deserve. They have started very well, and this is a different season to the previous campaign. So, good start for it. Need to build on that, of course.
Yeah, I'll bring Gary back in to ask you another question there as well. I think he's got one regarding other aspects of League One, Gary.
Yeah, again, Gab, I mean, obviously you're an incredibly knowledgeable young man, and I'm interested, you speak to an awful lot of other fans. How are other fans and other pundits from outside of Lincoln seeing Lincoln's rise at the moment?
I think there's certainly respect for Lincoln City. I think, you can talk about the rise to Lincoln this season in terms of moving into the top 3 of League One, but I think you've also got to look at the rise with the broader context where you're pretty much a mid-table National League side a few seasons ago, so you've come a long way very quickly, and I think there's respect for that. For a long time, I think beyond maybe was necessary, there was this kind of stigma, you might call it, with Lincoln, where you're a direct side, where direct balls into Matt Reed, and I think that's a little bit past it now. I think Danny Cowley sort of evolved the style of play into a counter-attack side in that 18-19 title winning season, and I think Michael Appleton's clearly taking a step forward. where you've got kind of Liam Bridcut sort of anchoring midfield on. So I think certainly we're seeing an evolution, if you like, of the style of play, and I certainly think outside Lincoln there's a level of respect for that.
Just finally then, Gab, a few months into the season now, what is your final sort of top six? What are your final playoff positions for you? Of course, 2 automatics and the playoffs as well. Who do you see getting into those positions? Because it's going to be very tight, isn't it?
Oh, goodness, a nice easy one there, Sam. Thank you. I think in terms of the promotion race for League One, Sunderland I would expect to be up there, not just because of the size of the club, they've actually started very well. Hull they've won 6 of their first 7 games and all to 0, so they're certainly going to do better than I've expected. Peterborough I would expect to be in that top 6 as well. But I also think that there's space for 1 or 2 teams to maybe surprise a few people, and I think that Lincoln City would maybe put themselves into that category. Doncaster looking a bit of a dark horse this year, and of course Charlton with the recruitment drive that they've put together. I think they could be a threat as well. So I'm not going to give you a direct answer, but I think that Hull and teams like that, potentially. There's a few teams that are sort of going to be expected to get their Peterborough, but there's also a few teams and I put Lincoln in this category, who could maybe surprise a few.
Gab, you negotiated it very well. You're a wealth of League One knowledge. Really appreciate your time. Go in and enjoy the all round of games, I guess, that you'll be keeping an eye on this afternoon. Much appreciated.
Thank you very much. And I'm doing an EFL fan show from 6 o'clock, which you can join me on my Twitter account for that. So, good luck to the Imps.
There you go. EFL fan show, no doubt worth a watch at 6 o'clock. That is at Football Lab for Gab Sutton. Great to have Gab on the show. Okay, let me remind you of today's team news. And I know you can see it there, but I'll read it through for you as well. This is the starting lineup for Michael Appleton. In goal, it's Alex Palmer, TJ Ioma, Lewis Monsma, Joe Walsh and Tayo Eden make up the back 4. The midfield 3 is Liam Bridcut, the captain, Conor McGrandles, James Jones. And then it is there's one change for Michael Appleton here. Harry Anderson, George Grant and Brennan Johnson. There's no Tom Hopper. He is on the bench. It's Ethan Ross, the aforementioned Tom Hopper, Anthony Scully, Theo Archibald, Jamie Sewell, Robbie Gotts and Sean Rowan. That's your Lincoln City starting 11 from the manager, Michael Appleton. This is what he had to say, speaking earlier on this week.
Yeah, obviously very impressed. I mean, obviously he's an experienced player, so he knows how to look after himself, whether that's during the games or in between the games. But not just the fact that he's been able to do that and recover. The performances he's obviously put in as well have been very, very good. And after such a, like you say, a long time out of the game, to put the 2 performances he has done, hopefully we get something similar tomorrow.
Him and Adam Jackson, obviously the 2 experienced members of your back 4. How key have they been to some of the younger players in the side?
Yeah, I think they have, and that was part of the reason, obviously, bringing them in and trying to bring that type of player in to the group. Because we know we've got a young group, we've got no problems with that. The likes of them too, and Liam Bridcut and Tom Hopper bring experience in games under their belt to help some of these young players through. We've had little sticky periods throughout games. We've had challenges within the games where we've gone behind, and you need a little bit of experience to pull you through that and come again. And so far, they've been able to do it.
Ipswich have not changed too much from last year. Only a couple of new signings. Has that surprised you? The lack of changes there?
Not really, to a degree, because obviously, you look at the squad and we've still got well over 30 players to choose from. So it's a very strong squad. It's a squad that they probably expected to go up last year. Who knows, with COVID they may have done that. But I think that the strength and depth that they had, I think there'll be a lot of managers be envious of what Paul's got to choose from. So not massively surprised. I think as a group they'll probably fancy themselves and back themselves to go up this season.
Tactically, have they changed anyway from last season?
Slightly, yeah. I think it's one of them where I don't want to give sort of too much away because just in case Paul listens. But there's a couple of very, very small changes to how they approach it, and hopefully we can make sure that's not too big of an issue tomorrow.
And it's a key couple of weeks, isn't it, with the amount of games coming up? Does your choice of team selection tomorrow also have in mind what's coming up with Tuesday night's game at Crewe?
Yeah, definitely. I think I said that before going into this period of game, before the Fleetwood game. I have to be mindful that, certain opposition will bring certain problems to us, and we have to pick a team that we think, one, is sort of ready physically, but obviously more importantly, or just as importantly, ready from a tactical point of view to try and win the game.
He's an astute man, isn't he, Gary? Never gives too much away, and he wasn't giving Rob Makepeace too much in the way of opposition tactics there, was he?
No, absolutely not. And I think that's probably something that does happen quite a lot in the modern world, with so many pundits and so many people analysing play. It's far easier to kind of get your scouting and understand how teams might play against you and how you should play against them. So I don't blame him being reticent. But yeah, he's an astute manager. And another point he made there about the number of games coming up. We talk about playing again Tuesday, then Saturday, then I think it's the following Tuesday, then it's the Saturday. So as much as we wax lyrical about a squad with options and depth, we absolutely need that to get through this period of games.
Yeah, Cornell says our rise this season has been extremely wicked. We Imps carry on playing the way that we are playing, then we might Imps can beat anyone this season. Yeah, confidence from Cornell, and not surprised to see why. Do keep your comments coming in this afternoon. We've heard a lot in the first part of the show about the Imps FA Cup run and how the Imps are getting on this season, but I'd like to hear your score predictions as well this afternoon. Paul Allison says great pace up front with Brennan and Harry going for a 2-1 win. And Gary, pace is certainly something that Lincoln City have in abundance this season, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's not just in the squad. I mean, even when you look at the likes of Remy Howarth, who's not getting in the Matchday squad at the moment, he's got plenty of pace. Got Theo Archibald from the bench. I think Liam Scully, everyone does that. Anthony Scully has got a nice turn of pace when he comes off. George Grant, perhaps not the quickest, but when you've got Harry Anderson and you've got Brennan Johnson up there as well, Grant's craft and guile complements that superbly. It's physicality in the midfield, but there's even pace there. I mean, I watched a moment on Tuesday night against Plymouth where Conor McGrandles lost the ball on the edge of the 18-yard area, but he was the first player back to challenge as the opposition made the run into the other half. So it's not always the attacking pace that's important. And you also look at the fullbacks as well, particularly TJ Aoma, who can track the quickest of wingers. And if I had a criticism of the last 3 years, it's that we had good fullbacks, but they were never particularly the quickest. And I think now we've got, it's just, it comes with youth. It comes with having a young side to a degree as well, but we are certainly rapid in key areas.
Yeah, Gary, Kev McCarthy says, we will miss Hopper's hold-up play. Johnson exciting, but a different type of forward. Just on Tom Hopper, for those just joining us now, Tom Hopper's on the bench today for Lincoln City. Gary, what will change, do you think, in the way that Lincoln City set up for this game, knowing that Tom Hopper, someone that has held the ball up so well and pressed so well from the front, isn't involved?
I think there'll be more emphasis on the midfield in terms of the pressing. I think Brennan Johnson's a player that's going to want to get on the shoulder of players and try and get in behind. I think when we've been switching 60-yard balls from left to right, that perhaps suits Johnson as well, so he'll be able to keep up with those quicker attacking phases. It suggests to me that we are expecting Ipswich to come at us, so there will be gaps further up the field. I do also think it's probably with one eye on Tuesday as well, in that, it's going to be tough for players to play 90 minutes week in, week out. So I think there's an element of resting Tom. I'll settle a debate that I had with my dad against Plymouth the other night, and he kind of was critical of Tom Hopper's performance. You don't realise what he does without the ball. And when you look at Brennan Johnson's goal, it's Tom Hopper that's got out and overlapped from Harry Anderson. So I think that will remain very much the same. I think we'll expect Brennan Johnson to be going out, Harry Anderson to be tucking in. So some of our attacking play will just be the same, but with a little bit more pace. But I also then expect to see Tom probably later on in the game against more tired defenders where I'm not saying he's slow, that's not the case, but where perhaps he will look quicker against players that have played 70 minutes football already.
Getting close to kick-off, aren't we? 35 minutes to go. We can see pictures of Alex Palmer and Ethan Ross warming up there in the LNER Stadium goal. Oh, brilliant save there as well. I think that was Alex Palmer, wasn't it? Hopefully he can pull out a few more of those this afternoon, or hopefully he won't need to. Let's go back to last season then, Gary, because this was quite a game. This was what happened the last time the two sides met in the league at the LNER Stadium. Take a look at this if you can't remember it.
To which I'm falling, and I'll be out for just one more. But you've heard that one times before, and on you it's no reflection. I'm just lost for good intentions, and sometimes it comes to life. Life's a lifeline, it keeps me by your side. You recall when I said forever just tomorrow. To the Hindenburg lights you prepare for my defenses. Or should I now take my chances? 'Cause I know writing's on the wall, but I'd give anything at all to get back to where we was when all around was where we both reside. And sometimes it comes to life, lost alive.
Yeah, a huge win for the Imps there. A huge track as well. Guilt trip gone, I believe. If that doesn't get you in the mood for the game, I don't know what will. Gary, what are your memories of that? I mean, we obviously didn't get to hear the atmosphere there, but it was quite a special night, wasn't it?
Well, I actually don't know, because I had flu at the time and was watching it at home on iFollow in front of an open fire, which was quite tough. I think it was a wonderful afternoon and evening for the club. I noticed there Tyler Walker, as he went through, was desperate for the ball back from Hesketh to create to get his hat trick. Defences certainly weren't on top. I expect Ipswich to be better than that defensively. We carved them open time and time again. I don't think I'm being unrealistic when I said the game could have finished 8-7. But it was one of those days that you'll always remember, because there was plenty of goals. It was between Christmas and New Year. It was just a special occasion. And I'd take a repeat of the result, but I could do without the worry of seeing goals going against us this afternoon.
Yeah, let's just finish on today's game then, Gary. How actually do you see this game going? Because Ipswich have done well so far this season, haven't they? But they're not the most open, expansive side. So when we knew that Plymouth were coming to the LNER on Tuesday, we were almost certain that we were going to get a pretty open game. We probably did, didn't we? With the way that Plymouth set up in the first half, the way that Lincoln really sort of had the second half of the game so well. This might be a little bit different today.
Potentially so. I haven't watched Ipswich myself this season, but like you say, they tend to like to attack down the flanks, as far as I'm aware, with the likes of Judge and Edwards. They've got pace in the forward areas. I actually disagree with Gab. I'm not a big fan of Ollie Hawkins. I don't know if that's because we were almost signed him and then didn't. But I saw him against us for Dagenham and thought he was average. I may live to regret those words. They've got a lot of guile in the midfield. I mean, John Nolan, we know really well. He's a special footballer on his day. You also look at across the back, the likes of Wilson and Nsala are good defenders, not the quickest. I would expect them to defend a little deeper. I think they'll press hard. It could be a cagey affair. We talk about that 5-3, but when you look at the other games involved in the clubs last season, we played them 3 times, lost 1-0 twice and drew 1-1. I'm thinking one of those games, the goal was a penalty. So they do tend to be quite tentative and cagey affairs. I just don't think a Michael Appleton side will ever allow that to happen for prolonged periods of time. When you look at the pace we've got as well, we do have the keys to get through the locked doors of the defences now.
Gary, that is us just about out of time. We've had the hour. It's absolutely flown by, hasn't it? We've had nostalgia with the Lincoln City FA Cup run of 2016-17 and some brilliant results against Ipswich. Obviously, look back at that 5-3 game as well, hoping for something similar this afternoon. But much appreciated for your time as well. We'll let you go off and enjoy the game. Gary, thank you.
Thank you very much.
So the thoughts of Gary Hutchinson there. That is us just about out of time. Of course, a reminder that you can get your match pass now. It's at www.weareimps.com/ifollow. All the commentary and build-up is available now with Michael Horton and Steve Thompson. They'll help you enjoy the game as much as you can possibly do so before coming back to the LNER Stadium at some point in the new future. Do enjoy today's game, and fingers crossed Lincoln City can get 3 points and go back to the top of the League One table. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.